The high-stakes trade relationship between India and the United States is back in focus. A U.S. trade team led by Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for South and Central Asia, Brendan Lynch, was scheduled to land in New Delhi late Monday evening. On Tuesday, the delegation is set to engage with top officials at India's Commerce Ministry. This marks the first in-person meeting since talks for a much-anticipated India-US trade deal collapsed. India's chief negotiator Rajesh Agrawal confirmed the significance of the visit, stating, India and the US have been engaged in talks at various levels, and the US trade team, led by their chief negotiator, is reaching India tonight and we'll be holding talks tomorrow to see what the future of talks will be. However, Agrawal stressed that this is not yet a formal round of negotiations, describing the meeting as exploratory. The breakdown in talks came after US imposed an additional 25% tariff on India's exports on the 27th of August, citing New Delhi's continued purchases of Russian oil. This was on top of the reciprocal 25% tariffs that India had been already imposed with earlier in August. The move dealt a blow to exporters, with many Indian businesses now reporting order cancellations from US importers due to rising costs. Despite rising friction, there are signs of optimism. US President Donald Trump said last week that India and the US are continuing negotiations to address trade barriers and that he was certain there would be no difficulty in achieving success. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi responded hours later, emphasizing the natural partnership between the two countries. Yet, tensions remain. The US Treasury recently announced that Washington has secured commitments from G7 countries to ramp up pressure on nations, which are especially China and India, that continue to buy Russian oil. For India, oil and agriculture remain non-negotiable red lines. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman reiterated earlier this month that India's oil purchases are driven by economic and commercial considerations. As the world's third largest consumer of crude, India depends on imports for nearly 88% of its demand. During his Independence Day speech, Modi underscored his government's position, stating, "The well-being of Indian farmers, fisher folk, and cattle keepers is our foremost priority." Modi is standing like a wall against any adverse policy that could impact Indian farmers, fisher folk, and cattle keepers. Meanwhile, India's Commerce Secretary Sunil Barthwal struck a cautiously optimistic tone, noting that talks have continued at multiple levels, be it diplomatic, ministerial, and technical. There have been discussions going through diplomatic level, on level of trade, on level of chief negotiators, on level of ministers. And on the trade front, a team of US trade negotiators would be coming to India for discussions. Further courses of action will also be discussed. But overall, there is a positive frame of mind in both countries with respect to trade issues. Still, officials warn the visit will be short, that is, just one day, and unlikely to resolve the deeper disputes. With both sides signaling willingness but drawing firm lines on critical issues, the Delhi meetings may set the stage for a more intense showdown in the weeks ahead.